When I first heard about this, I was like, is this for real? Is this for real? And it turns out this is true. This is true. So let's go ahead and get started. And I have a couple of clips I want to show you about this story as well, because I think this is huge. It says that Minnesota becomes the 4th state to offer universal free school meals. Not exaggerating. This is the governor here of Minnesota, surrounded by a handful of kids here who are very happy that this took place. So it says, starting this fall, students at Minnesota schools will get free meals regardless of their ability to pay. So this is not one of those reduced lunch, free lunch programs that are means tested. They are making sure that every kid at these public schools in Minnesota will have free lunch. It goes on to say a bill signed into law on Friday, March 17th by Governor Tim Walz provides more than $800 million in funding for school lunches and breakfast over the next 4 years. A free meals program was one of the top priorities this session for the governor and Democratic farmer labor lawmakers, who say they want to craft a state budget that will prioritize education and families. Surrounded by students and supporters of the measure in the cafeteria at Webster Elementary School in Minneapolis on Friday, Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan said providing meals will give students without access to enough food at home a better shot at succeeding in school. So this was really huge for me. When I saw this, I was really happy about it. I would like to see more states implement something like this. Now, that being said, this was not met very well. Politically, it was not met well. I want to show you what one of the actual GOP senators had to say about this particular bill. Of course, he was not happy about this. Not everyone is, right? So listen to what he had to say, the argument that he makes. He's arguing against free school lunch. And he said that he's yet to meet a hungry Minnesotan. Oh, dear. Here we go.
Besides the healthy meals and giving money back to families, feeding kids at school is the right thing to do. Being hungry makes learning almost impossible. There is no worksheet or assignment, test, or project that will matter to a student who hasn't had anything to eat. We can vote yes today and make sure next school year every student gets breakfast and lunch at school. Let's do that. Let's feed the kids.
The last thing before we go tonight, hunger is a relative term. That right there was Minnesota State Senator Heather Gustafson making the case for her bill proposing free school lunches. But not everyone was on board. Please watch this argument from Republican State Senator Steve Drazkowski.
Mr. President, I have yet to meet a person in Minnesota that is hungry. Yet today, I have yet to meet a person in Minnesota that says they don't have access to enough food to eat.
I just want to go ahead and pause it there because I would, if I had the opportunity, I would like to ask him, why is that? Why hasn't he met someone in Minnesota that is hungry? You know, the statistics don't show or don't actually support what he is saying. There are a lot of kids at these schools, at least these public schools, that the only time they actually get to eat that day is that free lunch and that free breakfast at their school. And as someone who's worked in these school systems, I'm very familiar with that. So maybe he doesn't know someone who is hungry because maybe he is in a bubble. Maybe he is in an economic bubble where he is actually not communicating with people outside of his class. Maybe he's not communicating with working class people. Maybe he's not communicating with poor people. Maybe he's just talking to people that are in his class bubble. But to say that you've never met a hungry person, regardless of what state you live in, I find that to be a little bit odd.
Now, I should say that hunger is a relative term, Mr. President. You know, I had a cereal bar for breakfast. I guess I'm hungry now.
That doesn't make any sense. The difference is he has the opportunity to have 3 meals a day. Financially, he can have 3 meals a day. And there are a lot of kids in this country that cannot. This is why one of the things that the Democrats are still bragging about is they were able to lift half the kids out of poverty, right? That's not a bragging point. The other half are still impoverished. But that being said, what it does speak to is the fact that people are not aware because they're not paying attention. They're not aware because they're not associating with the people who have those types of economic needs. So for him to just try to relate his own situation to someone who is impoverished, I don't feel that that's fair. Just going to keep that there.
Well, for fact's sake, Senator, I have never met lots of people, but I know they exist. I know lots of them are suffering. Like the 1 in 6 children in Minnesota who experience food insecurity, according to the anti-hunger groups. And the estimated 8% of the children in one of the counties you represent, sir, who lived in poverty in 2021. That is up from 7% the previous year. Luckily, your colleagues were not persuaded by your argument, and they voted to pass the legislation 38-26. Once the bill is signed, Minnesota will join states like California and Colorado in providing free meals to kids. So chew on that, Senator.
So California and Colorado are one of the other states that actually are providing free meals as well. Now, this is new to me. I've never lived in a state that did provide like free lunch to everyone or free breakfast to everyone. So I did not have that experience, but I think every state should implement that policy. I don't think it should just be those states, so to speak. Now, he's not alone, though. He's not alone, because I want you to hear from another politician in Minnesota who also apparently was just not aware, And you have to ask yourself again, why is that? Let's get into this story here. Now, here's a clip here from Walter Hudson. Rising star alert. Hadela DTBL destroys the premise for universal school lunch. His weapon, simple math. By a generous reading of Dem's own claims, 60% of kids in Minnesota surely have no need for free lunch. That translates to 120 million in annual waste minimum. Ay. Listen to this. I don't even know what to say.
I'm actually thinking about voting yes in
All these Twitter videos.
support of this bill. I hope nobody got whiplash over there. You've got a Republican that's thinking about voting yes on this bill, and I'll come back and tell you why in a minute. But it's not because it's a good bill. Oh God, no, let's look at the math on it. So Representative Jordan stated in committee that 1 out of 6 kids in our school are hungry. That was shocking to me. I had no idea the number was that high.
So here's another one who's saying the same thing. 1 out of 6 kids are hungry in Minnesota, and he's also saying he had no idea the number was that high. And we have to ask ourselves again, why is that? Again, I think it's because they're not communicating with people that are outside of their class. Kinky says, I got free homemade school meals in California growing up. When did they start charging? Yeah, I didn't know that was a thing. Like, apparently in California, I never lived there, but I always had to pay for my lunch. You could either bring your own lunch or you had to pay for your lunch. Eric says it's about poverty. That's right. 100%. Cobra says they give the kids here crappy peanut butter and nasty bread. That's their free lunch. And whoops, sorry, lower class minority district. The shipment didn't arrive this month. Interesting. Leroy said those clowns never want to look at the math when it comes to the war they fund. No, they don't. Like, it's only when this money is supposed to go to the people. That's when they seem to have a problem, and they haven't seemed to look at the numbers.
1 out of 6 kids hungry. Nobody wants that in this room. In fact, we should all be a little bit ashamed that it's gotten to that point. So take that 1 out of 6 and convert it to a percentage. It's 17%. It's actually a little under that, but we'll round it up. So 17% of the kids in our schools are hungry. It's shocking. We have to fix it, and we all agree on that. And if we agree on that 17% of our kids are hungry, then it's also true that 83% of our kids are, well, not hungry. But wait, there was another number that was talked about in committee. It was 1 out of 4, or 25%. There's 25% of that 83% of kids that aren't hungry that said, we would use this program. We would use the program. We could use the financial boost. Times are tough. Put us in there. And I agree with that. We can take 25% of those kids where their families make just a little too much money, and we can help them out. So if we take that 25% of the remaining 83% of the kids who aren't hungry, it comes out to be 21%.
I don't understand the need to do all of this complicated math. Just give it to everyone. You see how they try to means test things. And when you try to means test a lot of these types of policies, it just makes it more complicated. It creates more paperwork. No one has time for all that. And then the other thing is too, is that sometimes people's families' income can change. So if your family's income changed and you were getting that free lunch, but then maybe they get a raise, that 2% raise that puts them just over that mark. Now all of a sudden you're not getting the free lunch anymore. I just think that's ridiculous. It's just better to give it to everybody. So he can miss me with all that. I'm sorry, but it's just ridiculous. Eric says, headline from July 2022, Massachusetts becomes the 5th state to guarantee students access to free school meals for 2022 and 2023. I didn't know that, Eric. Eric goes on to say, July 28th, 2022, Governor Baker signed into law a 1-year extension of school meals for all for the 2022 and 2023 school year. See, that's good to know. So the states are Massachusetts, California, Colorado, and now Minnesota. Hopefully more can add on to that. Now, I do want to show you the governor actually signing the bill, because it did happen. And I thought it was so sweet the way that he did it. I mean, I feel like you can't see this and not get warm and fuzzy inside. You know what I mean? But this was trending on Twitter. More Perfect Union actually featured this. And it says here, Minnesota Governor, oh, this is so tiny. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz has signed a law guaranteeing free breakfast and lunch for all students in the state, regardless of how much money their parents make. Tens of thousands of food insecure kids will benefit. Let's take a look at the signing.
It is now law.
Ow! My eyes! And my legs hurt too.
Good job, Webster.
So sometimes this is what it takes. You know, I know a lot of times some of the things that we talk about can be kind of, as heavy, so to speak. A lot of the stories we talk about sometimes can be kind of heavy. And every now and again, it's good to see a feel good story. So congrats to Minnesota. Congrats to the governor for signing that, because again, it still has to be signed. So congrats to him for doing that and helping out those kids there. Again, it's one of those things, like, everybody deserves food in this country. Everyone deserves housing. Like, these aren't crazy ideas. So I think this is really important for people to fully understand. What was that, Kinky? It's the USDA food pyramid that is downgrading the institutional quality of food. Yeah, I think they're now telling people not to follow that food pyramid, last I saw. At least that's what I remember. Leroy says, see, being an older white guy around kids doesn't have to be creepy. Oh, Leroy. Oh my gosh. Okay. Okay. All right. We're going to go ahead and, right, Brian, first good story I've seen all year. Yeah, every now and then we need to see like these feel good stories. We need to hear about that.